Good evening, everyone. My name is Sterling Washington, and I'm the Director of the Mayor's Office of GLBT Affairs, which is part of the Mayor's Office of Community Affairs, the larger Office of Community Affairs. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the Mayor's Town Hall for Pride, a conversation with the Mayor. And I would like to thank our media sponsor for the event for the third year in a row, the Washington Blade, and bring up Lynn Brown of the Washington Blade to make introductions. Thank you.
Good evening and a big happy Pride to everyone in the room. It's that season, and this is indeed, as Mr. Mayor just told me, our third year of hosting a conversation with the Mayor. Lou Chibbaro, present on stage. We'll have questions, and then we're going to open it up probably in the next 20 minutes or so, 30 minutes, to questions you all have. The Blade's very proud to be here, and we would like to thank the Mayor's Office. Sterling is already, okay? Yep, thank you. And Mr. Glaudet, thank you so much for all that went into putting this together. Mr. Mayor, thank you for your openness and willingness to field questions. And most of all, thank you to our readers and our friends and family, the people who are here this evening and who make the Washington Blade possible every week. So read your newspaper, stay on top of things, and here are the questions.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, again for joining us here today this year. Let me start with, we're going to deal with mostly local issues, but one national issue that, of course, has been on the top of the news in the LGBT community and elsewhere is marriage, of course. Mm-hmm. And I thought people might be a little bit interested in your thoughts on, and predictions, since everybody else is trying to do it, about what the Supreme Court might do. As you know, there's two very big issues before the court. One is DOMA, the Defense of Marriage Act, which prevents D.C. same-sex couples who marry here in the district from obtaining federal benefits and rights that go with marriage for everyone else. And then there is the Proposition 8 case in California, which conceivably could, although people say it's unlikely, could result in marriage being legal for same-sex couples everywhere, or just in California by overturning Proposition 8 and ending their ban there. Mm-hmm. But I just thought I'd ask you where you think what may happen and how that'll play out nationally.
Well, I've ceased to be a prognosticator when it comes to the court. Those are two huge issues. I think people know where I stand. First of all, I was extremely proud to be the chair of the council when we adopted marriage equality legislation here in the city. That was in December of 2009, just about 3.5 years ago. And by the way, at the time that it happened, I said, you know, in 10 or 15 years, people will stand up and say, what in the heck was the big deal? And I was wrong on that. And the reason why I think I was wrong is it won't be 10 or 15 years. It's going to be a much shorter period of time. Look at what has happened in Maryland, what's has happened in Delaware, what's happened in Rhode Island. You know, and this is going to sweep across the nation, in my opinion, to finally bring equality to a situation that never should have gotten to this point. So, first of all, I'm proud to have been a part of an effort here in the city when there was still a huge controversy and helped to set a tone, I think, nationally. Now, as far as DOMA is concerned, Proposition 8, we have actually joined with other states. In one instance, we've joined with 13 other states. We're part of 13 states, we can be called a state, that have resisted Proposition 8, which prevents people in California, obviously, from being able to, same-sex couples from being able to marry. And DOMA, to me, is a further infringement on people's rights. You know, the Constitution promises the enjoyment of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And it seems to me that is an encroachment on people's opportunity to be able to pursue those rights. So in one instance, we've joined with 13 states. In another instance, we've joined with 15 states. And both of those briefs are in opposition to what DOMA requires by federal law, and also resistant to Proposition 8 as well. You know, it seems to me that this is the DOMA is one area where we ought to get out of people's lives at the federal level. That should be that responsibility should be available to the states, state and local municipalities, state jurisdictions and local municipalities to be able to make those decisions. And again, imagine if someone came into the city and said that, you know, because of DOMA, we were going to have to overturn our marriage equality law here in the city, or that Proposition 8 somehow was going to have significance for us here in the District of Columbia. We'd probably have a riot in the streets, rightfully so, and I'd be right out there with everybody fighting on that one. Probably get arrested again like I did 2 years ago for protesting the issue of equality here in the District of Columbia in terms of voting rights and our budget equality, et cetera. So hopefully that's clear about where I stand. I don't know what the court is going to do, but I actually hope the court does take a stand on this and overturns DOMA and says that Proposition 8 is unconstitutional.
Okay. In terms of D.C., I'll intermingle a few questions from readers who sent us emails as well, and touching on the issue of D.C.'s rights, which obviously impacts the LGBT community. We don't have congressional voting representation, and you have been a strong advocate for that. But one reader said, we haven't been able to get anywhere on that for a long, long time. Would you consider having the city retrocede to Maryland and have D.C. be a city that would be represented in the U.S. Congress from their senators and representatives from the state of Maryland? I just thought I'd throw that out.
Was that one reader?
Yes.
Well, thank God it was only one. There is no way I would ever agree to that. Why should we have to become a part of another jurisdiction in order to enjoy the same rights that everybody else in America enjoys? I think it's an absolute travesty that there are 119 nations in the free world. We are the only city among the democratic nations in the free world that doesn't have a vote in its national legislative body. Why should we not be able to control our own budget? We raise our own money. We raise $6 billion a year. We have a $10 billion budget that includes federal funds that, for the most part, are generated the same way that states generate their funds through Medicaid and TANF and, you know, and federal highway funds and so on and so forth. So there's no way we should have to be able to obtain rights by becoming a part of another state. So my answer is absolutely not would I agree to that. And I'd rather fight the fight however long we have to fight it to be able to be a distinct, unique entity. And frankly, what does it get us at the end of the day? Is that what we want to be? We want to be a city in another state? My ultimate goal is to be the 51st state of the United States of America.
Okay. On the issue, two quick questions regarding the D.C. Department of Health. Dr. Saul Levin, who you named as acting director of the Department of Health, made some history as the first openly gay head of a D.C. government department of that size, certainly. Mm-hmm. And he recently left, as people may know, to become the new chief executive officer of the American Psychiatric Association. And so that leaves an opening now for the Department of Health. I was wondering, have you decided on who the next director might be?
No, he won't be leaving probably until the middle of July. He is still with us, and Dr. Levin is somebody who I'm extremely proud of. The appointment that he got is absolutely sterling. Not Sterling Washington, but it's an absolutely exceptional appointment he's gotten as head of APA. It's an appointment he had actually been considered for once before. So he is working with us to identify his successor, but there'll be a number of weeks before he actually leaves.
So you haven't decided then who the person might be? Mm-hmm. Okay. In terms of the Department of Health, they, of course, have had some issues with a local transgender services organization. We talked about that before, but I'd like to ask you if there's an update. Transgender Health Empowerment, THE, has had some financial problems, and we're told they have been unable to perform the services they once did for transgender clients, and they perform very important services, people have told me. And I guess two questions. One is, can something happen where the city can restore its funding for them? And number two, before that happens, is the city taking some measures to make sure the clients that they once served on the city's behalf, because it was under city contract, that those clients are now, their needs are being met by other alternate city agencies or providers?
Yeah, the Department of Health has taken steps to try to see that those who are being served by Transgender Health, in fact, are being served by other organizations at this stage. And by the way, it is not something that we wanted to do. I think Transgender Health does an excellent job. We didn't have a choice. There was an IRS lien that was imposed on Transgender Health, and as a result, we could not continue to provide funding under those conditions. It is my understanding, though, that Transgender Health is taking steps to be able to have that lien removed. And when it is removed, we look forward then to continuing to work with them to provide funding for the services that were provided. I guess it had to do with non-payment of taxes, FICA or something. I don't know exactly what the details are, but again, it wasn't something that we imposed, but because of our own guidelines, our own rules, our own regulations and laws, we had no choice but to do this. So we look forward to the restoration of those services once the lien has been satisfied.
Okay. There's an issue that also a number of readers have asked us about, and advocates in the community. Certainly through your administration and prior administrations in the city, LGBT advocates and groups have provided training or trainers for city agencies on LGBT sensitivity, on a whole host of issues. I think they've worked with the police department, the fire department. I know that Earlene Budd has provided her services to have some sensitivity sessions with the Department of Corrections, clearly. But I'm told that they have not been compensated, and it's not that they want to make a lot of money, but they have to take their own time off from work often and use their own personal leave time to do this. And they've been asking, they tell me, the city to see if some arrangement might be made for compensation for performing these services for the city government. Is there something that you think could be done along those lines?
I'd be happy to consider it, Lou. I thought you were going to say that they had a contract and hadn't been paid, at which point I would have said we'll find out immediately what the situation is. But if this is a situation where they are providing services and they believe that compensation should be afforded, I would ask Sterling and working with Steve to be able to look at that issue and see what we can do. We provide a lot of training. In fact, I'm really proud of the training we've provided. We've now trained 99% of our senior managers in the government. We've also trained 20% of the D.C. government employees, and that's 20% of about 33 or 34,000 people. And our goal is to do about 20% every year until we get everybody done. And there's no reason why we shouldn't work with experts like the people that you named. So I would ask them to connect with Sterling and Steve, and we'll see what we can do.
Okay. Let me ask again, because we're constantly asked also about the problem of hate crimes. Hardly a month goes by when we don't get a report, or when we do get a report about another LGBT person being the target of a hate crime. And some people that follow the police department have said that there may not be a methodical way of determining what happens if arrests are made. In many of the cases, of course, there haven't been arrests, but when there are, one reader wondered whether there might be a way for the police to release what happens to the person arrested in these hate crimes. Are they prosecuted? Is the U.S. attorney aggressively pursuing the case? And what ultimately happens? Have you heard anything along those lines?
Not a lot recently. I think many people know that we worked with the U.S. Attorney's Office to be able to get, I guess you call it permission, support for community impact statements, which really are designed to be able to elicit information from people in the community that would help us corroborate that in fact something was a hate crime, because oftentimes it is very difficult to prove. In some instances it's very obvious that people were attacked because of their sexual orientation. In many instances it's not. I see Mr. Bethea, who is here with us tonight. His daughter, I'll say, was attacked a year ago in February. I think it was February 2nd of 2012, killed, and we've never been able to effectively establish legally that that was a hate crime, even though that was suspected. The community impact statements will help to be able to establish that, because it generates information from others who may be able to contribute to what a motive may have been for somebody committing such a crime.
Okay. A quick question then about the issue that the Washington Post brought out, but it has some impact certainly with community-based health providers, particularly those that provide services to people with HIV/AIDS, about the city's Medicaid payment program was interrupted due to a financial, I guess you might call it collapse, as the Post called it, for the company that was providing the city's Medicaid payments. Where does that stand now?
Well, the contract has been rebid. We have new providers, new MCOs that have been identified. Everybody who was a member, if you will, of that company has been assigned to a new company. The issue that still remains that we're going to try to be helpful with is the question of what happens to those payments that were not made for a period of time before the transition was made. Transition was officially made on May 1st to a new company, so whatever happens from May 1st on will be covered and paid for through the provider agreements that have been entered into with these new companies. So every one of these providers, of which there are many, has a new relationship with AmeriHealth or, MedStar or Unity or other companies now. The question is what's going to happen to those payments that are due for the period that was not covered, which could be as much as, it could be a substantial amount of money, but it's probably a period of, 6-8 weeks that was not covered. The city has indicated that we're going to try to work with those providers to see what we can do. We don't have a final solution on that yet, but we understand the implications also for our network of providers in the city. So we're going to try to be as helpful as we can, even though the city has in fact paid for those services once. So in effect, to whatever extent the city pays in this situation, it will then have paid twice for the services that have been provided.
Okay. I'm going to open it up to questions very soon. Just one other quick question for you about something that we get a lot of feedback from the LGBT community in terms of the nightlife entertainment, particularly in the bustling U Street area, which is very close to where the Blade office is, and Whitman Walker. But do you have a position on this proposal that seems to be not getting all that much support from the advisory neighborhood commissions, but the proposal to have a moratorium on all new liquor licenses for restaurants or bars in this U Street, 14th and U Street corridor for I don't know how many years, but it would prevent any new restaurant or bar from opening? Have you taken a position?
I don't support that. I think that a number of ANCs don't support it either. I don't know who the people are that are behind this, but I don't think it's a large group of people. But that's why we have the existing structures in place. We have an ABC board that helps to make those decisions. We have effective mechanisms in place to address if a particular establishment appears not to be performing in the way it should. They can be closed down. The chief of police can close them down for 96 hours if there are if there's obstreperous behavior, violent behavior that takes place. Their license could be jeopardized. There are hearing processes for that. So no, I don't have any basis for supporting that at this stage.
Okay. One last question before going to Q&A from the audience. We certainly would love it if you want to make some headlines today to tell us whether you're planning to run for re-election. But just in case you don't want to answer that, I will ask a follow-up, and that is when you might make a decision on that.
Well, you're right. I'm not going to answer that tonight, and I don't have a specific date. But I will say this: I believe that we have done the things that we set out to do. I've been in office now, not even really 2.5 years. We talked about fiscal stability. We talked about continuing with aggressive education reform, getting people back to work. Our unemployment rate has come from 11.2 to 8.5% during that period. The economic development is booming all over the city. We now have 61 cranes actively doing work in the city. And I think we know our public safety, there's certainly areas where we can continue to improve, but in 2012 we had the lowest number of homicides in the city in 51 years. We just put $100 million into affordable housing, which I think will benefit lots of communities, including the LGBTQ community here in the city. And our sustainability plan, frankly, is one of the most wide-ranging and aggressive in the nation at this stage. So I believe we've done the things that we said we were going to do, Lou. People have asked me if I like my job. I don't describe it as liking the job. I absolutely love this job. I love working with people. I love, frankly, what we've been able to do to work with the LGBTQ community to be able to move efforts along in this city. I want us to be the most friendly place, if you will, in the nation. You look at the number, the population is growing. 1,200 people a month are coming to this city because it is a city that respects diversity. I want to be able to be in a position to continue to do that. So I will make a decision at some point. We have almost a year, maybe longer, before the election has taken place. I just ask everybody to continue to work with us, to continue to do the things that we've done for the last 2.5 years. There are a lot of people out here who I've worked with, not just becoming mayor either. Long before I was mayor, as a council member, as a council chair, and in my life at Covenant House and others. And I look forward to continuing to do that, and then we'll make a decision when that time comes.
And in terms of the development and all the cranes and so forth, certainly a lot of that is happening in the U Street area.
It is.
And this raises just a quick question about the Reeves Center. You may recall the Washington Business Journal did this report with unnamed sources, but they said some officials in your administration had been considering or under discussion with the possibility of facilitating a new soccer stadium in Southwest, in Buzzards Point, to keep the soccer team here in D.C., that there would be a possible land swap and that the Reeves building might be one of those properties that the city would trade to a developer in exchange for getting the land to build the soccer stadium. And of course, the LGBT Community Center is just about to move in to the Reeves Center. You've helped them. They have a 15-year lease. Could they once again be displaced, do you think? Is there anything to this business of a land swap?
Well, we've had no discussions and no plans afoot about the Reeves Center at this stage. I love reading the media and I find out lots of things. I even find out things that I said. Really? But no, there is no plan at this stage to do that, Lou. We worked hard, as you know, to get the D.C. Center to a permanent home. And we want them to have a permanent home. There have been no such discussions about the Reeves Center. If there were such discussions, but there haven't been, if there were such discussions, we'd certainly want to work with the D.C. Center to make sure that whatever would happen, they would have a permanent home. But that's really so premature now. There just haven't been any such discussions.
Okay.
Thank you to the mayor, of course, for taking time out of your schedule, and to Lou for the interview. Again, thank you all and happy Pride.
Happy Pride.